I drop my wedding ring between their glasses and watch it spin like a siren. The bar goes quiet in my head. Brass lights, brick wall, and my wife, Lauren, staring at me over a man's shoulder. 2 months, I say, because I heard them toast it. The guy freezes. He still has his own ring on. That matters. I don't raise my voice. I don't make a scene. I just tell them the one thing that saves me. This ends tonight. An hour earlier, I flew into New Orleans from Chicago to surprise her for our anniversary. 10 minutes ago, I watched them kiss. Now the ring stops spinning, and I decide to keep the house, change the locks, and keep my dignity. If you've ever wondered what a clean break sounds like, it's metal on wood and nothing else. Give me 60 seconds and I'll show you the line every man should draw, and what happens when you do. Deal. I'm David Miller, an architect out of Chicago. I'm not famous, but I've signed off on enough kitchens, clinics, and corner offices to know how buildings and people hold weight. My days run on plans, permits, and coffee that's never as hot as it should be. I grew up south of the city, learned early that steady beats flashy, and carried that into my work. Clean lines, honest materials, budgets that don't wander. When I met clients, I cared less about their buzzwords and more about why the space mattered. A daughter's bedroom, a bakery's first oven, a waiting room that should calm fear. That mindset made my career stable, not explosive. The mortgage got paid, the old Camry kept starting, and I slept well, most nights. I believed if I did my part, life would meet me halfway. That belief built my rhythm. Gym at 6, office by 8, home by 7. It felt durable. It felt safe. Then I met her. I met Lauren on a Tuesday that smelled like printer toner. She walked into our office selling ad packages we couldn't afford, and I knew it before she pitched a single page. But she had poise, black blazer, calm voice, the kind of eye contact that keeps a room honest. Mark, my partner, nudged me like a teenager and whispered, "At least hear her out." I did. We talked numbers. The math said no. She closed the folder, smiled, and said, "You're not my client, but I'd still take that coffee." We went to a cafe around the corner, wobbly table, burned espresso, and conversation that didn't wobble at all. She asked about projects. I asked about her travel. She said she was tired of living from carry-on to carry-on. I said I was tired of living between deadlines. In that tiny honesty, something clicked. When she left, the office felt louder. The city felt louder. I called her the next day. She answered on the first ring. Dating Lauren felt like adding windows to a dim room. We didn't rush, but we didn't stall. Weeknights were takeout and Netflix before Netflix was cool, and Saturdays were long walks around the lakefront where the wind made us lean into each other. She moved in after a year. 1 suitcase, then 2, then a drawer that magically became a dresser. She traded the road for a stable sales job in the city. I traded late nights for dinners at a real table. We learned our rhythms, my habit of stacking mail by height, her habit of watering plants like they were on payroll. She kept lemon slices in the fridge for optimism, she'd say. I learned to like tea. She learned to like my playlists from college. Our friends said we made sense, 2 people who understood work and wanted home. The day I realized I'd stopped narrating my life in singular pronouns, I bought a ring. On a Sunday, in our kitchen, she said yes. We married the following spring, under a sky so clear it felt rented. It wasn't a spectacle, no ice sculptures, no fireworks, just family, a few friends, and vows we wrote on index cards. I promised to be the man who shows up, not the man who explains. She promised to be my home, not my distraction. We honeymooned in Door County, spent more on gas than wine, and decided that was perfect. Back in Chicago, we settled into a gentler, better grind. Early alarms, shared calendars, a budget that had room for small splurges. We argued like normal people, about laundry, about whether my 5-minute Home Depot runs were ever 5 minutes, but apology came quickly and laughter came quicker. That first year, I caught myself smiling while doing dishes. There's a peace in knowing where you'll be at night and who will be there with you. I thought that meant security. Maybe it did, or maybe it just meant I had more to lose. Success doesn't knock. It emails urgent at 10:47 p.m. The firm grew. We took on a hospital renovation and a string of tenant build-outs that looked simple on paper and complicated in real life. Staffing ran lean, deadlines ran hot, and I started wearing stress like a second shirt. Lauren's job ramped up too. Her new quota came with a shiny title and invisible chains. We tried to protect dinner, plates on the table by 7, phones face down, but the modern world is loud. One Sunday, I brought floor plans to brunch and spread them out under the syrup. She teased me for it, then did the same with her sales pipeline. We laughed, but the message was there. Our calendars had moved in. Older friends warned us, guard your time, say no. We nodded, said yes, and promised to compensate later. Later is a tricky word. You can't deposit it. You can only spend today. Eventually, the bill arrived dressed as distance. The first crack showed up on an anniversary. Not the big round number, just one of those middle years you're supposed to celebrate anyway. I booked a dinner, then let a deadline bully me. She called at 5, asked if I was still coming. I said 15 more minutes. That famous lie married people tell. At 9, I was still sketching egress routes while my phone buzzed itself tired. When I finally walked in, she was on the couch in the dress she'd chosen for me to notice. The food in the takeout bags was cold. Her voice was colder. We didn't fight loudly. We barely spoke. The next morning I left flowers and a note that said, "I'm sorry. I see you." She forgave me, but I learned something ugly. Love doesn't just count the big days. It counts the small betrayals of attention. I promised to do better. And I did, for a while. Promises are sturdy until pressure tests the joints again. Margaret and Frank, Lauren's parents, are good people in that complicated human way. Frank fixes things with silence and elbow grease. Margaret fixes things by pointing to the rule book she keeps in her head. Margaret never warmed to me completely. She said I seemed too calm, which translated meant she didn't trust still water. Holidays were cordial, overcooked turkey, undercooked opinions, and the annual discussion about when we'd have children. We said, not yet. She heard, never, and frowned at her mashed potatoes. Frank would change the subject to the bulls, bless him. Over time, the smallest critiques piled up. How I stacked dishes, how I missed one birthday call. None of it fatal, all of it friction. Lauren played interpreter, and I appreciated that. But I also saw how much weight she carried between her mother's expectations and our marriage's reality. Families don't break marriages. Pressure does. Still, pressure loves allies, and Margaret became one more voice asking if I was enough. At work, my circle tightened to people who spoke blueprint. Mark, my partner who could smell scope creep from the parking lot. Claire, our assistant who ran calendars like air traffic control, and a crew of younger designers who thought Red Bull could replace sleep. After hours, the group text pinged with dad jokes, traffic shortcuts, and reminders to stretch our backs. Lauren's circle shifted too. She built new relationships around her division, salespeople who called at odd hours, managers who measured worth in quarters and quotas. That's where Eric Johnson entered the conversation, first as a name, then as a story. The new director who gets it, who pushes but listens. I nodded, happy she felt seen. That's what you want for your spouse, right? To be appreciated. Except appreciation can blur into admiration, and admiration can borrow the language of intimacy. I didn't see lines moving yet. I saw my wife excited to win. I didn't realize she'd begun winning somewhere I couldn't follow. If you had visited our home then, you would have called it solid. Mail sorted, laundry folded, a calendar on the fridge with color-coded blocks that made busy look organized. We cooked on Sundays, her lemon chicken, my roasted vegetables, leftovers stacked like a weekday plan. We still kissed goodbye in the mornings. We still exchanged that glance couples use to say, we're okay. And most days we were. That's the trap of competence. You can maintain the shell while the center chills. The small absences grew. A late meeting here, a muted phone there, 2 glasses in the sink when I had only poured 1. None of it proof. All of it data. I told myself not to be dramatic. Adults work late. Adults get tired. Adults go through seasons. Then, one evening, she mentioned a trip to New Orleans for a client pitch. I circled the date on the fridge. I smiled and said, "Go win it." I meant it. I also felt something tilt. Eric Johnson arrived in our marriage before I ever met him. He showed up in sentences first, short, efficient ones. Eric reworked the deck. Eric pushed the client, it landed. Lauren's voice carried a new charge when she said his name, the kind of energy people get when they feel understood. At dinner, she'd lean over her plate describing how he gets the market, how he doesn't waste words. I nodded because I want my wife to be valued at work. That's what grown men do. We clap for each other's wins. Still, there was a sliver of quiet after her stories, a space where our own conversation used to live. She'd check her phone, smile at a notification, then lock the screen face down beside her fork. I watched her hand rest on the table like it was guarding something fragile. When she said, "Eric's got my back," she didn't check my eyes for a reaction. That's when I noticed the temperature drop. Distance isn't dramatic. It's practical. It sounds like running late and don't wait up. It looks like a phone set to do not disturb at 7 p.m. and a laptop open on the couch where we used to sit close. Our talks became updates, calendars, deliveries, traffic on the Dan Ryan. We rationed attention like gas in winter. When I asked how she was, Lauren gave me the weather report. Busy, fine, tomorrow's packed. I missed the small talk that used to wander into big talk. Old music, old dreams, the dumb thing I said at 22. She laughed less at my jokes and more at texts from numbers I didn't know. One night I reached for her hand and felt her shoulder tense first. She apologized and said she was wiped. I believed her. Tired is a real thing. But so is the way a room can hold two people and still feel like a waiting area. I went to bed early. She stayed to finish one last email. The late nights stacked up like delivery boxes by the door. "Quarter end," she'd say, kissing the air. "Travel season," she'd add, grabbing her tote. The house learned new rhythms. Solo microwaves humming at 9:30, the lock clicking after midnight, the shower turning on before hello. Sometimes I'd wake to the scent of a perfume I didn't recognize. Not bad, just not ours. Uber receipts hit her inbox at odd hours. Her heels learned to land softly on the stairs. I tried to greet her halfway, to make the landing gentle. Lights on low, a plate wrapped in foil, her favorite lemon water sweating on the counter. She'd thank me, touch my shoulder, and vanish into steam. In the mirror, I watched myself practice the face of a patient husband. Older friends say marriage is long, and long roads have potholes. I repeated that like a prayer. Then one night, she came in smiling at something private. My name didn't cross her lips before the door did. Intimacy didn't end with a slam. It faded like a song through a wall. "Not tonight" turned into "maybe this weekend," which turned into a calendar invite that both of us ignored. The couch, once a place we tangled into, became neutral ground. Her corner, my corner, a throw blanket between like a border. We still hugged. We still kissed. But the kiss moved to the cheek, then to the air, a courtesy on the way to chores. I tried patience. I tried humor. I tried a new cologne that made me smell like a hardware store. She smiled, said it was very assertive. I stood in the bedroom doorway one night wanting to ask, "Is it me?" The word stuck because adults don't want to sound needy. Instead, I folded laundry like a man building order out of cotton. When I slid my drawer closed, she rolled away from the lamp and said, "Big day tomorrow." The lamp went off. So did the room. So did something else. Suspicion is a fire that begs for dry wood. I refused to feed it. I told myself the story older couples had told us at parties. Every marriage has seasons. Some are harvest, some are winter. I thought about times I'd failed her. Anniversary dinners hijacked by deadlines, the half-listening nod when she needed my full face. I reminded myself that decent men don't confuse fatigue with betrayal. So I built a new routine, longer gym runs, later office hours, a podcast in my ears while I cooked so the silence had company. When doubt showed up, I shelved it like taxes. Important, but it can wait until April. If you've ever carried a house payment or a kid through college, you know this trick. Keep moving, and emotions fall in line. One Tuesday she texted, "Don't wait up." I replied, "Be safe." I set my phone face down like a boundary. It felt grown. It also felt lonely. The shelf I'd stacked my doubts on began to bow. People who love you hear the tone before you do. Mark, my partner, slid a coffee across my desk and said, "You all right, Dave?" Claire, our assistant, asked if I wanted her to block a date night on the calendar like a client meeting. Even Frank, my father-in-law of few words, rubbed the back of his neck at Sunday dinner and said, "Don't let work take what's yours." I smiled at all of them, made a joke, changed the subject. Admitting worry felt like breaking rank. At a guy's lunch, a friend told a story about how routine hid his problems until it didn't. "Keep your eyes open," he said, tapping the table like a warning bell. I nodded like I understood and then ignored it like a speed limit. Denial is comfortable. It lets you keep your hands clean and your calendar full. That week, Lauren mentioned a late meeting with Eric. I said, "Get home safe." I stirred my coffee until it went cold. Lonely has a shape. It looks like a king-size bed with one pillow dented and one smooth. It sounds like a dishwasher running at 10 because you ate alone at 9. It feels like clicking the TV remote just to fill air that doesn't need filling. I started eating at the kitchen island instead of the table, standing, fork in hand, like I didn't plan to stay. Neighbors waved from their driveways more than I waved back. I found myself staying longer at the office to avoid watching time move in the living room. When Lauren came home early, the relief surprised me. When she didn't, the quiet didn't. I started praying, not fancy prayers, just "help me be decent." On a Thursday, I texted her a dumb meme we used to send back and forth. She answered with a thumbs up. Not a laugh, not a comment, just a sticker. You can learn a lot from the stickers people choose. That night, I left the lamp on. Little lies wear nice shoes. We ran over in the meeting. Flight got bumped. Client needed a debrief. Each answer fit, like luggage lining up on a carousel. None of it wrong on its face. But the timing started to rhyme. A receipt here, a call there, a late night, "we crushed it" text with confetti I wasn't invited to. One night at 12:14 a.m., I woke to a screen glow and a message that said, "You up?" Not to me. She turned the phone over, face down, as if privacy were a blanket. I stared at the ceiling and counted paint strokes like sheep. The next morning, she poured coffee and said, "I'll be in New Orleans next week with the team. Big pitch. Eric wants me there." I said, "Proud of you." I meant it. I also felt a door open somewhere I couldn't see. Lies, even small ones, don't shout. The truth does. It stood at the threshold and waited for me to ask its name. We drifted like two boats tied to the same dock but pointed in different directions. Our talk lost its private language. We became I, then my. We stopped finishing each other's sentences and started editing them. At the grocery store, we walked aisles like colleagues on a task. I reached for a joke, one of our old dumb ones about the cereal mascot, and watched it die between us. She smiled with courtesy, not history. At church, an older couple squeezed our hands and whispered, "You two are a blessing." I smiled for the photo in the parking lot and wondered what blessings look like after they get tired. At home, she packed for New Orleans with the efficiency of someone who had practiced. I tucked a travel note into her bag like I always did. "Knock 'em dead. I'm here." I waited for a text when she landed. The 3 dots blinked, then stopped. Drifting doesn't break you in half. It makes you forget you were one thing. Our anniversary circled the calendar like a promise coming due. I pictured us at dinner, the kind where the waiter grates pepper like theater, and you order dessert just to stretch the good part. Then I pictured the bar I hadn't seen yet, the corner table, the story I didn't want to know. Denial had kept me warm. It hadn't kept me married. So I did something simple men do when they've had enough of guessing. I made a plan. I told Richard, my boss, I'd be out. Claire worked the flights. I packed light, shaving kit, clean shirt, one good jacket, and left the house tidy because I needed at least one thing in order. At O'Hare, I watched planes lift like decisions finally made. In the window reflection, I looked steady. On paper, I was going to surprise my wife for our anniversary. In my bones, I was going to find the truth and speak mine back. New Orleans waited. So did everything else. I stepped into Richard's doorway and didn't bother with small talk. "I need Friday," I said. "Maybe Monday. Anniversary trip." He has the manager's face, calculating calendars, pretending not to. He glanced at the whiteboard, then me. Can you cover the tenant walkthrough? Mark will handle it, I said. I'll brief him in an hour. Richard leaned back, temple between thumb and forefinger, the pose he uses when he's choosing between control and trust. You've been carrying a lot, David, he said. Go, but answer if I call. I nodded. I always answer. He half smiled. Try not to. On the way out, I lingered at the model of our hospital wing and straightened a corridor that had shifted off axis. Habit. Always fix what you can reach. At my desk, I sent Mark the files, set an auto-reply, and deleted 3 emails that could survive without me. My phone buzzed. Claire. If you're going, tell me now. I typed. Book it. Claire doesn't waste sentences. She called instead of emailing. Direct or cheaper? She asked. Direct, I said. Soonest. I heard furious typing, the soundtrack of every miracle she pulls off. O'Hare to MSY, she said. 2 hours, 40 minutes. You can make the 6:20 if you leave now. Seat? Aisle, exit row. You like legroom when you're nervous. Hotel? Near her conference. Rooms are tight. I've got 1-2 blocks away. She paused. You sure about this? I looked at the framed renderings on my wall, the future we sell. I'm sure. She lowered her voice. Then we keep it clean. I'll text your boarding pass, email the hotel, and put a rental on hold in case you need wheels. Eat something. I will. She added, answer only if it's me. It was care disguised as admin. My phone pinged with confirmations, a drum roll. Grabbed my jacket. Claire texted one more. Breathe between steps. I wrote back, copy. I moved. Now. I pack like a man who's learned from delays. Shaving kit first, because airports sell toothpaste but not your brand of calm. 2 shirts, 1 jacket, jeans that can pass for dressed if the lighting is right. I add a notebook. Paper slows my thoughts when the phone won't. I walk the house with that pre-trip stare. Stove off, windows locked, the coffee maker cord looped on the counter so I don't wonder later. I tuck the spare key under planter the way every homeowner swears they don't. Before I zip the bag, I slide in the photo from our early years. Lauren laughing by the lake, hair pulled back, eyes turned toward me like I was the destination. It feels like carrying a relic and a report card. At the door, I hesitate, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, small machine that never sleeps. Hold the fort, I say to the house, and lock up. Some promises need witnesses. I hit the road with a plan and a cushion. Chicago traffic respects neither. I took the side streets I've trusted for years, the ones that dodge the worst lights and spit you out near Kennedy. The sky carried that airport color, muted, expectant. On the radio, a Springsteen track reminded me that men have been racing toward women and answers forever. I parked in long term, snapped a photo of the row like always, and hustled the shuttle with a dozen strangers rolling the same black bag. At security, shoes off, belt off, wedding ring still on, habit and hope wrestling in a plastic tray. The TSA agent nodded me through with Midwestern kindness says, we've all got somewhere to be. O'Hare's concourse buzzed, neon and pretzels and departure boards flipping fortunes. At the gate, I texted Lauren, wheels up soon, can't wait to see you. I stared at screen until it dimmed. Group lined up. Somewhere, a truth did too. Quietly. The plane smelled like sanitizer and second chances. I took the aisle, buckled in, and did the ritual. Phone to airplane mode, wallet in the bag, breath steady. A couple across from me argued about armrest rights, the kind of marriage negotiation that used to make me smile. I put on noise-canceling headphones, a quiet I could control. The cabin dimmed. Engines wound up like a promise. As we climbed, Chicago lights spread under us like circuitry, and I remembered our first apartment, the way we ate on boxes and called it charming. A flight attendant tapped shoulder and asked if I wanted anything. Water, I said, because water is what you drink when you can't fix anything. Turbulence arrived on schedule, those drops that make you grip the seat and release it. I pictured Lauren at a hotel bar reviewing slides, not lips. I told myself that image was fair. Then my gut argued otherwise, and the seatbelt sign dinged. I tried to sleep and walked through our years instead. Year 1, lemon slices in the fridge, Lauren calling them optimism. Year 2, the used sofa we celebrated like a promotion. Year 3, the first scare, my job wobbling during a bad quarter, her hand steady on my back. Year 4, 2 funerals, one on each side of the family, the kind of losses that make you buy coffee because life is shorter than you thought. Year 5, a road trip where we got lost and laughed harder because of it. Year 6 through 8, ordinary, which I thought was heaven. Year 9, the argument that taught me how much attention matters. Year 10, making up for it, vacations, but ours. Year 11, the drift, like a boat leaning on its rope. I measured my part honestly. I was faithful with my body and careless with my time. The plane hummed. Everyone slept. I practiced the words I might need to say. We landed into wet heat and a sky the color of brass. My phone woke angry, buzzing with emails that didn't deserve me tonight. I ignored them and opened the hotel app Claire had emailed. The reservation waited. 2 nights, flexible checkout, an address in walking distance of Lauren's conference hotel. I appreciate logistics that respect emotion. At the desk, a clerk with a jazz pin on her lapel greeted me with efficiency of someone who's seen everything. "Welcome to New Orleans. ID and card?" I handed them over and tried not to look like a man deciding marriage at midnight. She slid me a key card and a map I didn't need. "Elevators to your right. There's a quiet place 2 blocks over if you want dinner." I heard words, quiet place, and pictured us reunited, laughing at nerves, choosing forgiveness. I thanked her, took the key, and promised myself I'd sleep first. I didn't. I showered, changed, went out. Slowly. I walked the 2 blocks the clerk mentioned, but I wasn't hungry. I was mapping. Her hotel sat on a busier corner, a lobby with floors, a bar framed in brass, and a river of badges on lanyards. Conference energy, confident, caffeinated, a little reckless. I chose a seat where I could see without being seen, a high-backed chair angled toward the bar and the elevators. I rehearsed 2 scripts. In the first, she walked in alone. I surprised her, and we turned a hard season into a story we'd tell our friends. In the second, I watched a man arrive before her. I wrote it slower. I studied the exits, the line of sight, the spill of light that hid or revealed. I texted Claire, checked in, all good. She answered with a thumbs up and 3 words. "You got this." The elevator chimed. A laugh drifted from the bar, hers, or memory faking it. I kept my seat and waited. I let myself picture the best-case version because that's how you stay human. She walks in, alone, tired but proud. I stand, ring still on my hand, and say, "Happy anniversary." Her shoulders drop, the kind of relief you can feel across a room. We laugh at how our jobs stole our marriage, then steal it back with a night that reminds us why we signed the paper. We order gumbo at the place the clerk mentioned, argue about whose spoon gets more shrimp, and toast to 2 people who almost forgot how to be 2. Back at the hotel, we talk until the carpet pattern memorizes our footsteps. I choose this picture on purpose, not because I'm naive, but because anger shouldn't get right of refusal. People our age know this. You fight for what you keep. I checked the time, checked the elevators, checked my pulse. Then the crowd shifted, and a flash of her dress cut through. The doors of Lauren's hotel breathed open and closed, swallowing people in name badges and pushing out the smell of citrus cleaner. I crossed the sidewalk like it was a bridge and stepped into colder air. The lobby was handsome, marble, palms, lighting set to flattering. I joined line at reception and listened to the way travelers ask for things: early check-in, late checkout, a room away from the elevator because sleep is a goal, not a guarantee. When it was my turn, I kept voice even. "Good evening, David Miller. I'm hoping to reach my wife, Lauren Brooks. Is she in her room?" The clerk checked the screen, dialed, waited, shook her head. "No answer," she said. "Would you like to leave a message?" I pictured messages that never land. "Not yet," I said. "It's our anniversary tomorrow. I'm surprising her." The clerk's smile softened into something like prayer. "I hope it's wonderful." I thanked her, turned, and scanned the bar. The lobby felt cooled on purpose, like a theater before the curtain lifts. I lined up at reception behind a dad arguing for a crib and a consultant asking for late checkout. When it was my turn, I kept my voice even. Evening, David Miller. I'm trying to reach my wife, Lauren Brooks. Is she in her room? The clerk typed with the calm of someone who has seen every kind of story. She dialed, listened, shook her head. No answer. Would you like to leave a message? I pictured a blinking light no one checks. Not yet, I said. It's our anniversary tomorrow. I'm surprising her. The clerk's smile softened. Older people do that when they recognize a tradition worth saving. I hope it's wonderful, she said, and slid me a small map of nearby restaurants. I thanked her and turned toward the bar, telling myself I'd look, not hunt. Then a sound I knew, as old as our marriage, floated across tile. You can forget a lot in 11 years, but not your spouse's laugh. Lauren's has a rise before it lands, like a skipping stone. I heard it cut across the glass noise in the hotel jazz, and it moved me before I moved myself. The bar was crowded, a soft rectangle of light and brass, with booths tucked behind tall backs that made privacy feel purchased. I took the long way around, pretending to check the art on the wall, black and white photos of street corners that looked important. My pulse did that drumline thing men my age know from checkups, a steady beat that refuses denial. I told myself I was here for the reunion, not the verdict. I told myself a lot of things. Then I saw a shadow profile that belonged to Lauren, shoulder, hair, the way she sits with one ankle tucked behind the other. I eased left to find the angle. I wanted truth. I also wanted it to be wrong. Third booth from the corridor, half hidden by a palm. Lauren, radiant in a dress she saves for nights you remember. Across from her, a man leaned in, a face I knew from stories, not from life. Eric Johnson. I recognized the posture more than the person. Elbows close, chin down, the attentive look people give when they've already decided. His jacket hung on a hook. His wedding ring didn't. Small things tell big truths when you're willing to see them. Their hands didn't touch the table, but they floated toward the middle like magnets negotiating distance. Lauren's expression had a softness we hadn't shared in months, the kind that made me remember how it used to be. I braced my palm against the doorframe because my balance wasn't convinced. Older men will understand. Sometimes your knees know the weather before your mind does. I took one slow breath and counted to 5. Then I watched the moment arrive that erased guessing. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. He leaned across a small space. She met him halfway, and their lips touched for the time it takes to agree. No movie angle, no applause, just consent, simple and clear. Sound fell out of the room like someone pulled a plug. I heard ice shift in a glass 3 tables over and the tiny scratch of my own ring against the wood as my hand steadied me. Grief didn't shout. It located my ribs and pressed. A man near me laughed at a joke that wasn't mine, and the world kept going, which felt rude. I did not march across the floor. I did not make a scene. I did what older, tired men do when the truth arrives. I sat. The chair found me like a lifeguard. I kept my eyes on them because denial requires blinking, and I couldn't afford it anymore. The kiss ended. Its meaning didn't. Something inside me refiled our marriage. When you're 30, heartbreak feels like fire. At 50, it feels like weight. My heart didn't race. It hammered, heavy and patient, like a worker who knows the job will take as long as it takes. I remembered my father warning me that the body keeps the score when the mind plays dumb. He was right. My mouth went dry, my hearing narrowed, my hands cooled. It was a weather system I couldn't outrun. I placed both feet flat on the floor and told myself the basics. Inhale, exhale, name what you see. I saw my wife. I saw a man I hadn't hired bringing energy I hadn't felt from her in months. I saw the way she tilted her head when she felt safe. The detail that hurt most wasn't the kiss. It was her ease. That ease had been mine. The waiter passed and asked if I needed anything. Scotch, I said. On the rocks. I wanted clarity. I got a mirror. The glass arrived sweating, a small mercy in my hand. I took the seat that allowed me to see their booth without being obvious, the way older detectives do in paperbacks my uncle loved. Their voices carried in pieces. Work talk first, little harmless phrases about decks and timelines and flights. Then the tone softened, the kind you use when your guard has decided to sit down. I caught "tomorrow at 10" and "we can celebrate tonight," and the shared chuckle that says the hard part's over. I thought of our kitchen calendar back home, the empty square where our anniversary belonged. I waited for my anger to stand up. It didn't. What stood up was resolve, the kind that puts you in motion without drama. I finished the first sip. It tasted like a decision. Across the room, Lauren brushed hair from her face, a gesture I knew by heart. She looked happy. That word landed heavier than the whiskey. I set the glass down carefully. They stood together, and time did that rubber band stretch. She tucked her hand lightly around his forearm, and they moved through the room as if the air had agreed to part. They passed within 15 feet of me. I didn't hide, and I didn't wave. I let the moment take my measure. Out on the sidewalk, the city made its familiar mix of laughter and tires and distant music. I kept a half block behind, close enough to see, far enough to remain uninvited. You learn that distance as you age. It's the space where dignity lives. They turned down a street I recognized from every travel article about New Orleans. Wrought iron balconies, brick that remembers, neon that refuses to. He leaned toward her to talk. She tilted her head and smiled. It could have been any couple, and it wasn't. They stopped beneath a sign I didn't read, and he opened the door with a confidence that assumed welcome. I followed second. Inside, the air was cooler and smelled like pepper and stories. The hostess scanned the room like an air traffic controller and seated them in a two-top pressed against old brick, the kind of table restaurants save for people who want to be seen by one person only. I asked for a small table along the wall and ordered another scotch because rituals help you hold still. From there, their conversation carried just enough. Work morphed into us talk, the kind that borrows a future it hasn't earned. "Meeting's not until 10, he said. "We can actually celebrate tonight." Celebrate what, I wondered, and the answer arrived without shame. She laughed softly, the laugh she used to save for our late-night victories. The waitress dropped a napkin under my glass and called me hun, the southern way older men hear when they look like they need it. I pivoted just enough for Lauren to see me if she wanted to. She didn't, not yet. I didn't have to imagine it. I heard it. His voice lifted like a toast. "Happy 2 months." Hers answered, low and pleased. 2 months, long enough to build a rhythm, short enough to pretend it's harmless. They clinked glasses, a bright sound that somehow felt private. Lauren teased him about how it could have been longer if she'd said yes sooner. He laughed, not bothered by the truth hiding inside the joke. A small, ugly efficiency moved into my chest. Math. 2 months ago lined up with the night she came home humming a tune that wasn't on our radio. The waitress asked if I needed anything else. "Just the check," I said, "and a pen." I set my hand flat on the table and turned my wedding ring once, twice. It wasn't fidgeting. It was rehearsal. Men my age don't threaten. We decide. Across the room, they leaned toward each other, comfortable in their secret. The word anniversary changed jobs in my head. People will argue with suspicion. They won't argue with math. I had the laugh, the bar, the kiss, the toast, the timeline. Proof doesn't need anger. It needs a spine. I felt mine straighten. The room regained its sound, the clatter of plates, a trumpet from somewhere outside, a table behind me debating whether to split dessert. I signed the check and slid the pen back with deliberate calm because the next thing I did would be the thing I remembered later. I stood, smoothed my jacket, and took the short path that made me visible without making a scene. If you've ever set a boundary late in life, you know this feeling. It isn't fireworks. It's a door closing gently with certainty. I walked until I could see their eyes. Lauren's widened first, then his. My ring felt heavy in my hand, not as a symbol, but as a tool. I had my answer. Now I would make my own. I didn't rush the distance between us. I measured it. 5 slow steps from the wall to their two-top, enough for my breath to obey me. The room sharpened as I moved. Brick, brass, a waiter lifting a tray like a question. Lauren looked up first, then Eric, surprise arriving on both faces at different speeds. I kept my hands visible, palms calm, the way men my age do when we've decided to behave. There are scenes you make, and scenes you refuse to make. I chose refusal. I stopped at the corner of their table and let silence work, the only tool left that doesn't lie. Lauren's mouth parted, my name starting without sound. Eric straightened, chin tucked, wedding band flashing under the pendant light like a confession. I took in the picture I would remember, then gave them the first sentence I'd rehearsed on the flight. Don't worry, I didn't come to argue. I paused. I came to end something. I slipped my wedding ring free and set it spinning between their glasses. Metal on wood, clean, bright, final. Conversations near us thinned, the way a restaurant learns to respect gravity. I watched the circle wobble toward stillness and said what I needed to hear out loud. 2 months, right? Worth it? The words didn't rise. They landed. Eric's hand twitched toward the ring, then stopped, as if touching it would burn. Lauren exhaled my name like a warning and a plea stitched together. I kept my tone level, the voice you use when you trust yourself more than the moment. You're both lucky this isn't our living room, I said, because you'd be leaving with fewer words. A beat passed. Here's what happens instead. I'll go. You'll finish your celebration. And tonight, we all tell the truth to the people who sleep beside us. The ring settled flat, no spin left. That sound was the only applause I needed. I slid the ring toward Lauren with 2 fingers, gentle like returning a borrowed item that doesn't fit anymore. You can keep it, pawn it, throw it in the river. It's not our problem now. I turned to Eric. You're married. I won't be your alibi. Do not come near my house. Do not text my wife. If your conscience has legs, let it walk you home. He opened his mouth and produced air. I didn't wait for nouns. Back to Lauren, I kept it simple. Your clothes will be boxed. Text where you want them sent. I'm changing the locks tomorrow. Her eyes filled, not dramatic, just full. She started to speak, to name stress, to name intention, to name everything except the kiss I saw. I lifted a hand. No speeches. I know what I know. Then the sentence I had saved like a spare key. We are finished. Older couples say closure isn't a door slam. It's a latch catching clean. Eric reached for the check like money could buy a reset. The waitress hovered, kind and brave in the way service workers are when life gets loud at table 6. I looked at her first. None of this is your problem, I said, and set enough cash to cover my scotch and her trouble. Lauren stood a little, then sat back down, caught between apology and defense. David, please. I shook my head. Not here. Not now. I wasn't angry at the staff, the other diners, the city. I wasn't even angry at gravity for keeping my feet on the floor. I was done, which is quieter than rage and heavier than grief. I straightened my jacket, the small dignity men cling to when there's nothing else to straighten. Eric muttered something about talking like adults. This is me talking like an adult, I said. I'm leaving. The mini-climax wasn't a shout. It was the chair sliding back without scraping. The door gave me my reflection for a beat. A man who had decided and would live with it. Outside, the night air felt honest. Horns somewhere, laughter somewhere else. I didn't check the window for their faces. I'd already seen everything I needed. At the corner, I let a couple pass, their hands threaded, a reminder that some stories still keep their promises. I walked toward my hotel with the steady rhythm of someone carrying nothing he doesn't intend to keep. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look. There is a time to answer and a time to let silence collect interest. At the next block, a taxi slowed as if it recognized a man ready to go. Not yet. I wanted the walk. Each step filed a paper in the courthouse inside me. Boundary set, property reclaimed, dignity intact. When I reached the lobby, the clerk looked up. Everything all right, sir? It will be, I said, and meant it. Back at my hotel, I asked the clerk for airline numbers like a man asking for a lifeline. She scanned, dialed, and handed me options with soft eyes that said she understood without prying. There's one in 40 minutes, she said, or 3 hours later. 40, I answered, because waiting had done enough damage. I threw what little I'd unpacked into my bag, checked drawers by feel, and walked into the New Orleans night that smells like spice and old brass. A taxi slid to the curb, and I promised a tip if he beat the clock. He drove the way men do when they recognize urgency that isn't angry, just final. At the airport, I moved through security like I'd rehearsed it all my life. Belt, shoes, laptop, breath. The gate screen blinked, boarding began, and I felt a strange courtesy from the universe. No delays, no announcements, just forward. When my group was called, I stood, lifted my bag, and stepped into the line I'd chosen. Night flights make a church out of a cabin. Low lights, whispers, everyone guarding their own prayer. I took the aisle and let the pocket air cool my face. The plane pushed back and my mind rolled the tape I didn't ask for. The bar's brass glow, Lauren's dress, Eric's ring, the kiss that didn't hesitate. I tried to switch the channel to anything. Ball scores, a grocery list, the miles of drywall I've measured. But the reel won. The flight attendant offered pretzels I didn't want and water I did. I pressed the cool cup to my temple like a tool. Across the aisle, an older couple shared earbuds and a blanket. I thought about how love, at its best, keeps choosing the same person in a room full of exits. I also thought about how I'd stopped insisting we choose. The seatbelt sign pinged off. I closed my eyes, found 3 deep breaths, and gave the picture its name. Proof. Naming it was the first relief. Some thoughts travel with you even at 30,000 feet. Margaret, my mother-in-law, had always kept her assessments tidy and accessible. "You're too calm," she once told me, which sounded like a compliment wearing doubt. Another time, half joking, half testing, she said she hoped I'd never be the one to break Lauren's heart. I let that sit then because it was easier to be polite than honest. Now, as the plane hummed, I replayed her certainty and felt a small, unflattering urge to call, to throw facts like darts. But older men learn hard truths about victory. Some wins sour your mouth. I don't need Margaret's apology. I don't need a jury. I need my own spine. Frank, quieter and kinder, would say, "Fix what you can reach." I could reach my front door. I could reach a locksmith. I could reach an attorney. I could reach sleep. The captain announced smooth air ahead. I decided not to weaponize her words. The better answer would be my actions. I keep one picture in my wallet because paper remembers differently than phones do. Lakefront sun, Lauren's head tipped toward me, both of us younger than we knew. I slid it out, held it at arm's length, and felt 2 truths at once. I loved that woman. That woman just asked for a different life with her choices. Love is not a magic eraser, it's a ledger. On our credit side, holidays saved, funerals endured, jokes nobody else would laugh at. On the debt side, the drift, the distance, the night I let work win, and tonight, loud, simple, final. My throat went tight, but the tears didn't come. Maybe they were busy finding other work to do. I slipped the photo back without ceremony. Sometimes respect looks like not creasing what used to matter. The cabin lights brightened a notch for drink service. I opened my notebook and wrote the first 3 items for tomorrow. Change locks, box clothes, tell the truth. The list steadied me. Forgiveness is a beautiful word. It's also a door you shouldn't open if there's a stranger on the other side. I'm not punishing Lauren. I'm protecting what's left of me. I'll be civil. I'll be fair. But I won't pretend. That decision didn't arrive with thunder. It arrived as a sentence I could finish without shaking. I'm done. I texted Claire, "Home tonight, need a locksmith at 9 a.m. She replied in under a minute with 3 names and a promise to confirm. I drafted an email to Mr. Anderson. "Please prepare the documents. I'll come by next week." I didn't send in anger. I sent because tomorrow deserves a plan. The plane began its descent, and Chicago spread out like a grid I'd helped design. Straight lines, clean edges, choices visible from above. I put my phone in my pocket, folded the notebook, and tightened my seatbelt. On paper, I was a man on a night flight. In truth, I was already home, and I wasn't opening that door. Chicago met me with that late-night chill that wakes your bones. I drove home on muscle memory, pulled into the garage, and let the engine tick itself quiet. The house looked the same, mail stacked, shoes by the mat, but sameness felt like a dare. At 9 a.m., right on time, the locksmith Claire booked rang the bell. He was a steady older guy who didn't ask questions. "Deadbolt, back door, and garage," he said. "All 3, I answered. He worked while I made coffee that tasted like resolve. We tested each lock twice the way men our age test our knees, listen for anything wobbly. He handed me 2 new keys and the invoice. I signed without blinking. After he left, I dropped the old key ring into the junk drawer and shut it like a ceremony. Then I fished it back out, walked to the trash, and let metal hit plastic. That was the sound of a line drawn. New keys, new rules. This was my house again. I started in the closet because order calms me. Dresses to one side, work blouses to the other, shoes paired like polite couples. I set up boxes on the bed, used thick marker like I meant it. Closet, dresses, bath, fragile, desk, personal. The small things took the longest. Hair ties in the nightstand, a perfume bottle that could time travel a room, ticket stubs from a concert we pretended was for the music. I folded what deserved folding, hung what shouldn't crease, and filled one garment bag and one roller, what she'd need first, if there was any kindness left to offer. I paused over the picture frame on her dresser. Us at the lakefront, sun reckless, both of us uncracked. I didn't put it face down. I put it in a box marked photos, because history isn't the enemy, pretending is. Tape hissed and snapped as I sealed the last carton. That sound became the mini climax of the morning, final without being cruel. Done is a verb. By noon, the SUV looked like a small move. Boxes labeled clean, garment bag riding shotgun, a note taped to the top with my number for scheduling pickup. Bronzeville always feels honest to me. Brick that's seen things and stayed. Frank opened the side door before I could knock, sleeves rolled, eyes kind the way men get when words are expensive. "You need a hand?" he asked. "I've got it," I said, and we carried in silence, the helpful kind. We stacked everything near the garage wall, tallest to shortest. Architecture habits don't retire. I set the garment bag aside. "These are first," I said. Frank nodded once, absorbing more than he'd say. "You sure?" he asked finally. "I'm sure," I answered. "Not hard, just finished." I left a simple list on top of the boxes, where the keys went, what time the locksmith came, how to reach me about anything missing. Respect doesn't require agreement, it requires clarity. As I turned to leave, Margaret's voice found us. She stepped out with her arms crossed like a verdict. "David, what is all this? Lauren's at work in New Orleans. Why would her things be here?" Denial has a familiar tone. I didn't need a translator. "Because she'll need them," I said evenly. "She's been seeing a man from her office. I saw them together last night. I heard him toast to 2 months. Margaret shook her head, the kind of refusal that hopes volume can edit facts. "Lauren wouldn't do that. You must have—" I held up a hand, not to silence her, but to keep us from hurting each other with extra. "I won't argue with you. I have the bar, the booth, the kiss, the words. That's enough for me." Her mouth set hard. Frank's jaw did that quiet worry thing. "If she calls," I said, "please tell her this exactly. The locks are changed, her boxes are safe here, and we are finished. She can text where she wants deliveries." That was my yes, to myself. I was back in the garage reclaiming a corner for my tools when the bell rang. Lauren stood on the porch in travel clothes and regret. She looked past me like she expected our life to reassemble if she stared hard enough. "We need to talk," she said. "We will," I answered, "but not about whether this happened." We sat at the kitchen table we chose together. She tried the usual exits: stress, pressure, being stupid, being tired. I let each one land and stay. "Would you have forgiven me for one time?" I asked. She paused, honest for once. "No," she said. "I'd have asked you to leave." "Thank you," I said. "Then you understand." She blinked, tears careful, and reached across the table. "Can we at least hug? Walk? Something?" "Not today," I said. "Not like this." I slid a short list toward her: locksmith, boxes, attorney's office. "We'll be fair, we'll be civil, but we're done." The mini-climax wasn't loud. It was the front door closing softly behind her. She came back the next evening with a face that had practiced sorrow. We sat at the kitchen table like two people negotiating over a house neither of us could keep. Lauren took a breath and said the word people reach for when they want mercy: mistake. She talked about pressure, travel, being lonely in rooms where everyone wanted something. I listened because respect doesn't have to agree. Then I asked the one question that keeps a man honest. If I had done it once, only once, would you forgive me? She stared at the wood grain and shook her head. No, she said softly. I'd have asked you to leave. I nodded. Then we're the same kind of people. She reached for my hand. I let the reach hang in the air and didn't meet it. I won't call this a mistake, I said. It was a choice. I slid a folder across the table, attorney information, timelines, next steps, mini climax. She folded it shut. So did I. A week later, she returned to grab the garment bag and a few things only she could find. We moved like co-workers, careful, polite, unsynchronized. At the door, she hesitated, eyes red from a day she wouldn't describe. Can I have one last kiss? She asked, as if a ritual could bless a bridge already burned. I remembered the bar's light, the small, sure kiss she gave a man who wasn't me, the way my ring spun on wood. I wanted to be kind. I chose to be clear. No, I said. I won't mix stories. Her chin lifted, a reflex from the strong part of her, then fell. You hate me, she whispered. I don't, I answered. I respect myself. I opened the door and stepped aside, not dramatic, just definite. She walked out, the garment bag over her shoulder, the strap dark against her coat. The latch clicked behind her, no slam, no echo. That quiet was the climax. I turned the deadbolt and let the house exhale. Time didn't heal. It organized. Mr. Anderson drew up the papers. We exchanged emails that read like weather reports, dates, signatures, property lines that used to be love lines. On a Tuesday, we met at his office. The conference room smelled like carpet cleaner and endings. Lauren signed first, steady hand, wedding band in her pocket, not on her finger. I signed next, printing my name like a man finishing a blueprint. We kept the money simple, the house mine, the accounts squared. In the parking lot, she said, I hope you find peace. I'm already looking at it, I said, and we both knew I meant the space between us. A month later, the decree came in the mail, one sheet that weighed more than it looked. Frank called that evening, voice kind and tired. You should know, he said. Eric stayed with his wife. I thanked him because gossip disguised as mercy is still gossip. Mini climax. I filed the decree, made dinner for one, and slept. News travels even when you stop asking for it. Through Frank, I heard Lauren left the company, then lost a job that never fit. She dated a few men who wanted a story, not a life. I didn't gloat. Revenge is for people who haven't cleaned their house. I cleaned mine. I learned to cook for one without wasting parsley, to fix the leaky faucet I'd ignored, to sleep in the middle of the bed. Claire knocked on my door, Mark dragged me to basketball, and my doctor reminded me to walk after dinner instead of thinking about it. I took a small pro bono project, a ramp for a neighborhood clinic, and remembered why I liked building. Sundays, I sat by the lake and let the wind file my thoughts down to what would hold. One evening, the sky went that quiet blue Chicago saves for honest days, and I realized I felt light. Mini climax. Nothing left to explain. Lake Michigan is calm tonight, the skyline behind me like a blueprint I don't need to change. Families grill, bikes whisper past, a gull argues with the wind. I stand at the rail and feel the weight I set down. I lost 11 years, but I got myself back. Forgiveness is noble. Boundaries are nobler. I chose dignity over drama, sleep over suspicion, a key that turns clean. No speeches, no revenge, just the work of a steadier life. Cooking for one, building a clinic ramp, laughing with friends who show up. The ring's last spin is memory. The door's soft latch is peace. If you've ever been here, you know. Healing is quiet until it isn't. It's your turn. What line would you draw? Drop a comment with your choice, forgive and rebuild, or close the door and rebuild yourself. And the lesson you'd give your younger self. If this helped you breathe easier, like, share, and subscribe. Someone needs this tonight.